ability to bring blessings or curses to your life. An understanding of this reality brings the power to change not only your life, but the lives of your family members as well. Generational blessings. Family is important to God. And it is clear that he does not think merely in terms of individuals, but also in terms of generations. See, God, he thinks way down the lineage. Matthew 1:17 tells us, so all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations. From David to the captivity in Babylon are 14 generations. And from the captivity in Babylon until the Christ are 14 generations. So he just kept going down the generations. He didn't stop with one person. When God looks at you, he also sees your family. He sees where you came from. He looks at your ancestors. And he looks at your children and grandchildren. When making a covenant with Abraham, God never once said, I am going to bless you. He always said, I am going to bless you and your descendants. So we are the descendants of Abraham. Okay? So when God spoke this to Abraham, he did not just speak it to Abraham, he spoke it to his descendants. No matter how far down the generations it goes, his descendants, God spoke the same blessings to his descendants. Just saying that God spoke these same blessings to Abraham's descendants makes you question, or should make you question, then why do I feel like I am cursed? I tell you why many people feel like they are cursed, because you don't know the truth. The Bible said you will know the truth, and the truth, only the truth will make you free. So from this day forward, now that you know that you are a descendant from Abraham, count yourself as being blessed and not cursed. Turn your way of thinking around. Because God is a God that cannot lie. So if I am one of Abraham's descendants, then God has already said that I am a blessed person because of my father Abraham. Now see, the problem with us today is we link blessings up. We always connect it to money and material things. Okay, everybody in life doesn't have material things like that, but it doesn't mean they're not blessed. Because that's the world-based blessing on that. But if you do a study on blessings in the Bible, it supersedes anything in this natural realm. That's why we just read where it said it's just as spiritual as it is natural. But the world keeps us focused on the natural. So we don't have what everybody else had. We feel like we are not blessed. But don't judge yourself like that. Judge your life according to Scripture. So it gives an example of this is in Genesis 22:17-18, where God said, in blessing, I will bless you. Now listen, he's talking to Abraham and his descendants. Are you a descendant? Then God is talking to you. And I want you to get this in your heart and in your mind today, that this is what God said to me. And I'm going to start speaking this over myself and stop thinking that I am cursed, because so as a man thinketh, so is he. So if you think you're cursed, then you're going to be cursed, because that's what you're thinking and that's what you're saying over yourself, right? So he says, in blessing I will bless you, and in multiplying I will multiply your descendants as the stars of heaven and as the sandwiches on the seashore, and your descendants shall possess the gate of their enemies. Now this is powerful to me. Yeah. Wait a minute, what did God say? First of all, he tells Abraham, in blessing I will bless you, and multiplying I will multiply your descendants as the stars of heaven and as the sand of the sea, which is on the seashore. Who can count Abraham's descendants? Nobody in this world can. Nobody knows how much sand is on these seashores but God. That's a lot of descendants. That's a whole lot of descendants. He said, and your descendants shall possess the gate of their enemies. You got to know your enemy. Who is your enemy? What is your enemy? Is cursing your own life your enemy? Then you need to possess that. You need to take authority over that. You need to put that curse out and speak the blessings of God over you. For the blessings of God are rich and add no sorrow to your life. So if you have things in your life and it's adding sorrow, that's not something that came from God. That's something that came from yourself or somebody else that put it in your life. So it goes on to say, in your seed, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. In your seed, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. You are a blessing to the nations. Abraham's seed are a blessing to the nations. But isn't it isn't it weird how they try to make you feel like that you are the curse to the nations? But the Bible don't say that. The Bible said that Abraham's seed is the blessing to the nations of the earth. So see yourself like God see you. Because he created you, he made you, and if he blessed you, who can curse you? I mean, people can try to curse you because they're evil, they're wicked, they're vile, but if you know what the word say, you stand on the truth. Oh, you can send your curses, but they won't work in. Because see, I already got from headquarters, the high heaven, that I'm blessed. And you cannot curse whom God has blessed. You can't do it. And if you do it, it's because I don't know my rights. I don't know who I am. I don't know what God has told me that was rightfully mine. So in ignorance, people can do stuff to you. And Satan loves ignorance, okay? So he says, Abraham obeyed God and was blessed, and his descendants were blessed too. Because blessings tend to run along bloodlines. Blessings tend to run along bloodlines. So therefore, if my father Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was blessed, I am blessed because I am the seed of these people. Amen. I am the bloodline of these people. And if I am the bloodline and I am the bloodline and you are the bloodline and there are multitudes out here that are the bloodline, if we know this, then we need to change our language. We need to change the way we think and perceive things about ourselves and about our children. And I don't care if daddy was a mess. Daddy, you should have known you was a blessing, but you chose to live in the curse because obviously sometimes they never come to Jesus to find out who they are. And so in our ignorance, we just keep the bloodline curses coming. We like, yeah, daddy was a bum, so I guess I'm a bum. Yeah, daddy was an alcoholic, I guess. Oh, he was a whoremonger, I guess I'm a whoremonger. You know, you gotta stop saying don't say that. Don't say that. Say what God says about you. And there are scriptures where it does say that the sins of the father is passed down to the children. But do I have to receive the sins of my father? No. And we receive them mostly because we don't know no better. That's why you must know what the truth is, because the truth makes you free from that ignorance or that ignorant behavior. And a lot of men and women, you know, they love mimicking their parents because to them it makes them feel like, yeah, I'm just like my mama. I'm just like my mother. Yeah, I'm mouthy. Yeah, I cuss you out. You think that's cute? You disgusting. Men, yeah, I'm just like my dad. You know, yeah, I go all through these women. You think that's cute? No, you're ignorant. You're around here dropping babies like just dropping kids all over the world and ain't taking care of none of them. And you think that's cute? No, that proves that you're a terrible person. You're a terrible man. You're a terrible father. You got kids all over the place and ain't taking care of none of them, but bragging about the fact that you're making these kids. You know, so that's the generational sin of following the footsteps of your parents like they really did something good, and what you're actually following is their ignorant sin. Okay? So it says here, curses also run along bloodlines. In Exodus 25:6, God warns the children of Israel not to follow false gods. Now, there are many scriptures in the Bible where the children of Israel kept following false gods. Unfortunately, to this day, this sin is still alive and well, and it's screaming real loud in the earth today. God's people are following false gods. They're following the gods of the nations, the gods of the heathens. In America, they have allowed all kinds of nationalities to come into the country, and with them, they bring their gods. They bring their gods in whom they have served on whatever land they come from, and they bring their gods to America, and then the American people learn the ways of the heathens. They learn about their gods, and they start doing what serving their gods. And they'll literally stop serving Jesus to serve these other gods because they feel like these other gods are making these people rich. Do you really think a big, fat, ugly gold Buddha is really causing these people to be rich? It's not. They're serving a demon, and that demon got them deceived. That demon is letting them get money through Satan, bewitching and deceiving them that this big, ugly gold statue is a god and is blessing them. It's deception at one of the highest levels. And so God's people do the same thing. We go out here and we buy, God's people buy all kinds of little statues and everything, thinking they got blessings attached to them. Some people even buy Christian people even buy angels, like statues of angels, thinking that these angels are going to cause them to have blessings in their house. Or, I bought an angel called Raphael, so I'm going to be blessed. I mean, I'm not going to get sick because Raphael, you know, the angel. No, that's an idol. That's not the Raphael. That's not the angel, okay? And God tells us not to go out here and buy these objects and bring them into our homes and set them up in our houses, because these are idols, and it's called idolatry. And you're worshiping and believing that this thing got power to do something for your life. It has no power, it has no eyes, it can't see, it can't hear, and it can't even speak. But yet you're putting your faith in something that has no breath in it. But here's Jesus alive and living again, hallelujah, risen from the dead, with all power, all might in his hand, and he is breathing, he's breathing. He is the breath of life, and you won't believe nothing he said. So it just goes to show you how twisted our minds are and how much damage the devil has done to God's people, because we chose and we're choosing to follow the false gods, saying, you shall not bow down to them. And this is God talking to his people. You shall not bow down to them nor serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. You make God jealous when you start setting other gods up before him. And it may not just be a statue, or it could be people. And I keep telling y'all, stop putting people before God. Stop putting your children before God. They cannot be the first thing on your heart. If your children are the first thing sitting on your heart, you better dethrone it quickly. Your boyfriend, your husbands, your girlfriend, your wives, your best friend, your mama, your papa, your grandpapa, I don't care who it is. Whoever's sitting on that throne and God ain't first, it's going to be a problem. And you're going to have to be disciplined so you can learn, because God is not playing. He just said it. I am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity, the sins of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. So these generational sins just keep going down the bloodline. And why do they keep going down the blood? Because there ain't nobody stopping it. The fathers obviously didn't stop it because they didn't love God enough to stop it. They chose to keep the ignorance in their bloodline. They chose to teach their children to smoke cigarettes, smoke weed, drink alcohol, whatever they doing. Watch porn. Come here, boy. Sit up here with your father, and I'm going to teach you how to be a man. Sit here and watch this pornography with me. What? How ignorant are you? But they pass this ignorance down. And guess what? Then your son going to teach his son that dumb stuff, and his son going to teach. And the ignorance just keep going down the bloodline. Women think it's okay to sleep around with men because mommy did it. So mommy did it, so I'm going to do it. So, because that's the way we roll. No, we don't roll like that. You got to love this temple. Don't let but mommy did it. Or guess what? The curse stops here. I ain't being no hoe for my mommy. I'm not following my mommy. I'm not following my auntie who's a slut too. I'm not following these people. This stuff running my family. That's what you got to do. It stops here, because if I don't stop it, then my children, my daughters are going to be like that. The sin will it's like a disease. It's like sin is nothing but a disease. It just keeps going down the bloodline because nobody is saying, hey, hold up. Now, I'm not doing this now. I don't agree with this. I'm not, and I don't want my children to go through this. And I'm telling you, I've lived some of that where I said, nope, this stops right here. My children will not grow up in the projects. My children will not grow up in the projects. My grandchildren will not grow up in the projects. Okay, I'm cutting this curse off now. There were things that was done in my family that I said, nope, I'm not doing that. And I meant it. I cut it off with me because I didn't want that to travel down to my seed. And that's how serious it is. It is really serious that you nip sin and cut it off. Because sin is not a friend, sin is a killer. And the price you pay for doing it is death. That's the price you pay. So he says, visiting the iniquities of the father upon the children, the third and fourth generation to those who hate me, but showing mercy to thousands to those who love me and keep my commandments. The word iniquity means to be bent toward a certain sin. Every family has certain sins they are bent towards. Every family. But if you want to follow Jesus, you got to stop bending toward these sins. You can't bend toward these sins anymore. You literally have to denounce these sins. You literally, if you're going to walk with God, then you got to walk with God. Jesus died for sin, for everybody's sin. He hung on that cross for everybody's sin. He was persecuted for everybody's sin. He paid a price that he should not ever have to pay because he wasn't the sinner. But he did it for us so we would not have to live in sin and suffer the consequences of sin. So he did it for us. So now we know that he did this for us. We cannot continue on in sin because there is grace and say, well, God, he know my heart. He understands. Yeah, he understands. He understands that you love that sin that you're in. You love that nasty stuff you do. You love it. And you think grace is going to be your excuse to make it into heaven. But grace will not be your excuse to get into heaven because grace is given it to you to conquer and overcome your mess. Grace is power. That's what grace is. Grace is God's unmerited favor, but don't think that his unmerited favor gives you a license to sin because it doesn't. That's why Paul says, shall we continue in sin because grace abounds? Just because grace abounds does not give you a right to live in sin. He says, God forbid that we do this. Then that means God don't want us to do this. We're not going to do this. We're not going to continue in sin because of grace. Because that was not the purpose of him giving you grace. The purpose of him giving you grace is so that you could rise up and be an overcomer. Grace will help you. That's why he said, come boldly to the throne of grace and obtain mercy. Come to God and come boldly to that throne. You need grace and you need mercy. And we need mercy because we all mess up. We all miss the mark. And we all arise every morning to what? Die daily to our sinful behaviors. And if you just examine yourself right now, I guarantee you can see some of your mom and dad in you. If you know who your dad is, I guarantee you can see dad in you. You can see mom's mess in you. You can see dad's mess in you. And you're comfortable with it because after all, it's mom and dad. Mom and dad have taught you how to sin. They have passed their sins down to you. And if your mom and dad is not saved and you are sitting in a household of faith, I adjure you to talk to mom and dad and say, look, we got to cut this sin stuff off because it's coming down to the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren. It's traveling down the bloodline. When are we going to put a stop to this, mom and dad? Somebody got to stand up for righteousness. Or are we just going to keep living this sinful life and praying that I just be some favorite child that God lets me in? And no, he don't have no favorites. He loves all his children unconditionally like every parent should. So you don't get no special treatment. You don't get to skip over going through sanctification because you're so special. You got to go through sanctification like everybody else. You got to renounce sin like everybody else. You have to learn to live upright before God like everybody else. I know people have bloodlines and they think their name is marvelous in this earth. Your name is nothing. Your name is nothing. My last name before marriage was Smith, and the Smiths thought they were something too. Okay? They thought they were something because, they were those people, what you call them? Caucasians. That bloodline. You know how they think. So guess what? You got to get rid of that. I don't care if you're white, black, yellow, green, purple. I don't care. You can be orange. I don't care what your color is. Guess what? You're still full of sin. And your last name don't mean nothing to God. If your name ain't Jesus, your name ain't nothing. Hallelujah. But he says, but those who keep my commandments, he said, those who love me and keep my commandments, they are the ones I show mercy to. I show mercy to thousands of them because they love me. How do you know you love Jesus? Because you keep his commandments. You got so many people about, I love God, I love Jesus, I love you. Ain't keeping nothing, not living nothing, don't obey nothing, but say, I love Jesus, I love. No, you don't. No, according to this scripture. No, you don't. He said, those who keep my commandments, they love me. The word iniquity means to be bent toward a certain sin, and we see that the iniquity of the parents is carried on to the children, to the third and the fourth generation. So a child will be bent like his or her parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents. Lord, have mercy. Now, I pray while I'm reading this, you're getting a vision of stuff in your life that you see in your mother, you see in your father, you saw it in your grandmama. You may not ever met your great-grandma, I don't know. But as far back as you can see, my God, Oh, this is where I get this mess from. Yeah, that's where you get that mess from. Drop that mess off at the altar. Drop it off at the altar. This is a curse I will not continue to live under. This is because listen, all sin is nothing but a curse, people. People comfortable, and they think they're not cursed because they got material things. In God's eyes, you're still cursed. Because sin is a curse. It's literally a curse. So it says they all have an inner inclination toward the same sinful habits. Let me tell you how true that is. Because when I was growing up, my mother smoked cigarettes, my father smoked cigarettes, my uncles, my aunts, everybody was puffers. My cousins, everybody was cigarette smokers. So guess what I became? A cigarette smoker. I grew up around that. What your children grow up around is what they will become. Unless they are strong and purposeful in their own heart and mind, I ain't doing that. And I've seen young people do that too, like, I'm not doing that. And they wasn't even saved, they just were determined, I'm not doing it. Because that's not what they wanted for their life. So, just to say what I was saying is that the sins of the parents comes down to the children. That's just the way it go, people. And you are sitting in church every week and you got to be determined, all right, now I understand what's happening. The buck stops here. I'm going to stop this because I don't want this happening to my children. The thing is this, do you love your children? Do you love your children enough to put a stop to it? Or are you so selfish, you just going to let the ball keep rolling and you don't care if they grow up to be just as rotten as the rest of the fruit in the family? Well, let me say this. God ain't coming back for no rotten fruit. He coming back for fruit that has been perfected. Fruit that will taste good. He ain't coming back for no rotten fruit. So it says here, they all have an inclination. I read that. Our fathers sinned and are no more, but we bear their iniquity. Look at this. Lamentations 5:7 says, our fathers sinned and are no more. They're gone. Dead and gone. But we bear the iniquity. Now they're gone. They're dead and gone. But the sin is still here because it's in me. I'm still operating in it. That's how you got to look at it. Because if you still see your father's sin operating in your life, then though the father is dead, his sin ain't, because it's living in you. Ain't that something? He says, in other words, even though they may be dead and in the grave, their iniquity is sticking with you. Goodness gracious. Evidence of curses. Deuteronomy 28:15-68 contains 53 verses listing generational curses. Here are just a few of the symptoms of curses listed here. These are just a few. Poverty. Gee. Poverty is one of the first ones. Meaning you don't have enough. Let me get. Poverty is the state of not having enough money or resources to meet basic needs. You don't have enough to meet basic needs in there. You can't afford food. You can't afford housing, to have a roof over your head. You can't afford to buy clothes. That's poverty. So it's not enough having enough money to resources to meet your basic needs, such as food, clothing, and shelter. All right. So now that's the first one. Poverty. These are just some of the symptoms of curses. As we go down here, I want you to see and examine, check off if any of this is going on with you. Then just know that there's some curses in operation. But you can change all of this if you believe the truth and stop believing the lie. So hereditary disease. This is another one. People are famous for saying who in their family had this and that and the other thing, and I know I'm going to get it sooner or later. Why are you okay, I'm born again, but I'm still accepting curses? No, I'm not going to have that. I'm not. Let me tell you something. In my father's bloodline, stuff running in his bloodline, and one of the things that run in his bloodline was they used to get the knees, like they need arthritis in their knees were hurt real bad, and they could hardly walk sometimes and stuff like that. And I remember when that stuff tried to hit me, I said, oh, devil, you is a liar. No, you won't. I don't receive no generational curse because I've been born again, washed in the blood of the Lamb. I don't have to accept no generational curses. I spoke to that thing. Guess what? Never had another problem. No, because I don't have to accept hereditary diseases. And when you sit there and accept that after Jesus said he was wounded for your transgression, bruised for your iniquity, the chastisement piece upon you was the stripes, you are healed. You are healed. And the first thing he said you're healed from actually is sin, because sin is what keeps you sick. Sin is what breaks you down. Sin is what drives you crazy. Okay? So what he's saying is you're healed from your sin and every disease associated with sin. Okay, therefore, when they start hollering about, well, cancer run through the family, well, keep on running. Don't stop here, because I'm not going to agree with you, okay? Don't stop here with the heart trouble. Don't stop here with none of that stuff. I'm going to fight it because I know my legal rights is I've been healed with the stripes. And yeah, the devil going to try to bring stuff, but you got to contend for the faith. He's going to bring stuff. And the women say it all the time, oh, because this, that, oh, this run through our family. Oh, you know, mental illness run through our family. Keep running, buddy. Keep on running. Don't stop at my door, because I'm not letting you in. Hallelujah. And that is another hereditary problem in my family, both on my mom's side and my dad's side. And then it tried to visit me one time in my life, and I said, oh no, Anna ain't going to be in no mental institutions. I wasn't that bad off, but what I'm saying is I'm not taking no medicine. This is a demon. And I did not even know anything about demonic warfare and stuff like that, but I just knew something in my spirit let me know it was a demon that was oppressing me or causing depression. I chose to fight that demon through fasting and prayer. I chose to do battle to win because I refused to receive what came down the lineage. Okay? And that's the way you have to take things. You don't sit there and say, well, I'm accept, well, this just, you know, the disease just runs through our family. So I knew sooner or later I was going to get it. Yeah, you got it because you thought it. You got it because you agreed with it in your heart that one day you would have it. And what you say out of your mouth is what you will have. Words have power. We got to get this in our mind. I don't care if they're evil words or righteous words, they have power. So as a man thinketh, so is he. What are you thinking? If you're thinking you're poor, then poor you will be. If you're thinking you got generational curses you shall have. But even if the generational curse try to show up, you have the authority to send that thing about his business. You don't have to accept that as a born-again believer in Jesus Christ. Divorce is another one. It's another one runs through my family. These are all curses. And sometimes you can't help but divorce when the devil keeps sending you nothing but demons. That's why we're supposed to pray before we marry. Should I be marrying this person, Lord? But you know what most people do? They don't pray. They just marry because this person make them feel good. Well, that's the catch. You know, Satan know how to catch fish too. God's people aren't the only one to fish. Satan fishes, and his people evangelize and fish. So we're not praying and saying, Lord, is this the spouse for me? Is this who you want me to marry? And if it is, confirm. Okay, we don't do that. We don't do that. We just, because this person makes me feel good. This person buy me stuff. This person takes me out. This person, you know, oh, the sex is good. You might as well say it because it's the truth. People go through all of that, and all the time, just because they do all of that doesn't mean that's your spouse. It doesn't mean that. Because after they have gotten you on that, after they have hooked you in, reeled you in, you said I do, watch what happens after that. Now here's what Satan going to start revealing himself through that person that you married that God never told you to marry in the first place. You didn't ask, you just did what you wanted to do. And there's a price to pay for that. And it will end up in divorce. And it is a curse because God never gave you permission, right? So what about child abuse? Another curse. If you grow up in a home where there is child abuse, that's a curse. That didn't come from God. God would never give you children and then have you abuse what he gave you. That ain't from God. That's straight from hell. And if you've been in a family of a child abuse, that was a curse on that family. And I guarantee you that before you were abused, the parents were abused. The mother, maybe the father, they went through abuse growing up, right? And I guarantee you their parents went through some abuse. And I'm telling you that same old evil thing just keeps coming that. Listen, with the curse do come demons. Those same demons are assigned to everybody in your generation to keep this curse alive, to keep you doing the same sins over and over and over again. from generation to generation to generation. So we beat our children. We don't handle them properly. You know, and child abuse don't have to be so much always physical. It can be mental abuse, talking to them like you ain't got no sense, saying crazy things to them, breaking their spirit. It can also be withholding food from them and withholding, you know, baths and clothing and stuff like that from them. It manifests itself in many ways. What about sexual abuse? That's a curse too. Okay? A lot of females go through sexual abuse from childhood. Maybe because mommy was raped or something and they never tell you about it. Maybe grandmama was raped. You know, it just came down. Why is all the females in the family getting raped? Why is there so much rape in the generations? Because somebody, somewhere, started it somewhere, and nobody never put a stop to it. But before you let your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren get raped, somebody better put a stop to this thing. I'm telling you, somebody better nip, somebody better dress that demon and stop that thing. Because if you don't, the rape is going to keep going down the bloodline. Domestic violence, being beat up by your spouse. Domestic violence, and it don't even have to be a spouse. It could be a girlfriend, boyfriend. You being beat up by your spouse, your fiance or whatever. Okay, where did that come from? Go back and look at mommy getting a butt kicked, and great-grandma and mommy, grandma getting a butt kicked. Great-grandma got her butt kicked. All the women in the family getting their honey kicked. They accept that trash. And you know what? You think that's normal because it happened to this one and that one and that one, and this is what happens in our family, and you think it's normal. It's not normal for no man to abuse a woman. That's evil. That's from hell. Neither should we accept it. Now, don't let me just stop with that, because you got women that beat up men too. Domestic violence go either way. You got women that beat up their husbands. You got women that make their husbands do everything, and he's afraid of her. But men, please, do not give your masculinity over to no woman. Don't even be scared of her. Now when a man's afraid of a woman, to me, that's the most pitifulest of them all. Like, men are supposed to be strong, right? And I can't stand seeing no man letting a woman punk him. I can't. And I think that's just the lowest it can go. Like, don't let no woman do that to you. Alcoholism is a curse. So if you got alcoholism going through the bloodline, everybody's an alcoholic, everybody drinking, and you think it's okay, this is how our family roll. No, your family killing yourself. You're killing your liver. You're killing your blood. You're going to be a diabetic. If you're not careful, you're just destroying your stomach, the lining of your stomach. You're doing a lot of stuff to yourself. It's slow murder. It's self-destruction on a whole nother level. Drug addiction. This runs through the family. Everybody in the family, you know, snorting cocaine, shooting up, smoking. Then we are born again. Aren't we supposed to put a stop to this stuff? It stops here. I'm not doing that. I don't care. You know, when I was young and in sin, and everybody smoking cigarettes, and I started smoking cigarettes. But when I really started following Jesus, I asked Jesus, take this from me. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be smelling and stinking. Cigarettes stink. They make your breath stink. They make your hair stink. They make your clothes stink. And you all in somebody's face with your funky breath. And your stinking hair and clothes. And you'd be surprised how many people leave church, go right at the door and light up a cigarette. Get delivered. It's sin. You're killing God's body. That ain't even your body. Your body is the temple of the living God. It is not your right to destroy the temple of God. Oh, y'all just complain about everything. No. Sin is sin. So if you're putting stuff in your body that's killing the temple of God, God said, if you destroy my temple, I'm going to destroy you. Think of it like that, Selah. So if I'm following God, I can no longer be putting that stuff in my body. When I didn't know no better, I smoked cigarettes. I never did drugs. I never did alcohol. Tried beer a couple times. I was never no drinker. God always had his hands on my life. If I tried to do what everybody else did, it just didn't work. I just looked stupid. You know, it didn't work. So you got to renounce these sins. Like, I'm not going to be my whole family drinking. And I mean, they get stoned. I'm not doing that. I serve God. And if you are doing it and you in the household of faith, Ask God to deliver you from that stronghold. Deliver you from that generational curse. It's a generational curse. That's why you all do it. It just keeps running down the bloodline. You better stop it. Because you got children, or you're going to have kids one day, and that same alcoholic demon of bondage is going to come after your kids. And then you have to watch them out here on the corner, slumped all over, drunk, walking up to people, you got 50 cents, making a shame of the family. Come on. We gotta stop doing these things. Immorality, being immoral, just living lewd and doing whatever you want to do. No, and then come into church on Sabbath or Sunday and get your tail on the choir somewhere. Call yourself singing. Sit your behinds down somewhere. Get some deliverance. Get some healing. You know how people go to church and they just as immoral as they can be. They'll leave church, they cussing, they swearing, they lying, they fighting. They go right home and fight. I mean literally, fight. Just evil. And doing immoral things. So immorality, adultery. Okay, you know what that is. Adultery runs through the bloodline. Daddy slept around on mama. Then mama slept around on daddy. Then it come down to you. Then your generation doing the same thing, sleeping around on your spouses. Then you ain't stopping it. So it go right down to your children, and now your children sleeping around, and it just keeps going. Somebody got to stop this. Because adultery is sinning against your own body. Sexual sin is the only sin where God said you're sinning against your own body. And there's a great price to pay for that. Perversion. There's a lot of perversion. Every time you turn around, there's stuff going on in these churches with these little kids being raped, little girls being raped in church, pastors sleeping with the young ladies in church. Perversion, and it's everywhere. So we got to kill that. Depression, oh my goodness. There's so many depressed people out here. It's unbelievable. At the mental state of humanity today is real bad, real bad. But I guarantee you this depression runs through the bloodline. It's a spirit assigned to that bloodline to keep these people depressed from generation to generation to generation. Yes, ma'am.
So I just have a question. So
go ahead.
To like drug addiction and alcoholism, right?
Uh-huh.
So you can pray for a person for the generation to be cursed, to be broken.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just trying to get a little bit of understanding. So
okay.
So you can pray for a generational curse to be broken.
Right.
But is it more power in when the person who the seed belongs to stop it?
Exactly. There's more power because that's their bloodline. See, it's a bloodline thing. You know what I'm saying? Because we all, somewhere along the line, help raise up people, children, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's that blood. The sin is in the blood. And it's got to be dealt with from the bloodline. So somebody in that bloodline has to take a vengeance and say, you know what? I'm going to keep saying the same word. It stops here. I don't want this no more. Neither do I want my children to go through this. And I always say, if you got children, see, you know what? That's what made me start getting my life right. My children made me start wanting to live right. Okay? And if you don't love your children enough to lay down your life, to say, I don't want my children to suffer the things that I suffered, if I could do anything to stop this same kind of behavior or the same kind of sin, curse, whatever, to come down to my seed, then I'm going to do that. I'm going to fight this. That's love. That's real love. People say they love their children because they buy them Nikes and buy them expensive shoes and expensive name brand clothes. You don't love your children because you buy that stuff. That don't mean you love them. As a matter of fact, you're literally making a monster out of them. Because the day they can't have it is the day they're going to let you have it. So it's not even about that. But it's about realizing that this terrible behavior runs down my bloodline and I see it. I'm not blind to it. And I tell you now, I don't want that for my family. I don't want that for my children. You gotta take this thing serious, because guess what? The devil's serious. He's not playing. He's playing. He's out for keeps. Yeah, I'm gonna keep your daughter out there prostituting. Sure am. She ain't got nobody praying for her. Her parents partying. They partying, acting like they teenagers, you know. So the child left out there just to the wolves. Now, I do believe that there are people that can intercede for people too, though, see? Just like the man that was sick and they brought the man to Jesus and lowered his bed down, and Jesus said because of their faith, he raised that man up off his sick bed. So it can work both ways, really. The bloodline curse needs to stop, but sometimes you can intercede for people. You can be an intercessor and watch God start working on that person's life and bringing that person out of that situation. And that person will still end up being the bloodline curse breaker. You may not can't break their bloodline curse, but you can pray for their deliverance so that they can wake up and start living right and break the curse. See? Intercession is powerful. Intercession is very powerful. So you got depression, confusion. People be so confused they can't even think straight. And that confusion keep running down the bloodline. And you just act silly. You be saying something totally, be like, oh, what you say? Oh, they don't even remember what you said. Oh, could you explain that again? Like they get confused, or they trip up on the words, or they just don't think clear. You know what I'm saying? Their thinking is not clear. So you got people that has that confusion. Oh, fear is a big one. This is the monster right here. A lot of people don't know. Fear is the most powerful weapon in Satan's army. That fear. Fear fights faith all the time. Faith is God's greatest weapon. That's why he said, above all, keep that shield of faith. Keep that thing up. You might forget the rest of your armor, but you better not drop faith. I'm telling you now, you better not let faith go. Of all those armors, you better keep that shield in your hand. Because with that, you are able to do what? Quench, stop all the fiery darts of the wicked. He said, you better above all. He said, above all your weapons, you better hold on to that shield of faith. And fear fights faith all the time. So fear is an emotion because it's a spirit. Now we naturally have a level of fear in us because what they call it sudden fear. If you get in an accident, right, sudden fear comes. It's called sudden fear. But the Bible tells us not to be afraid of sudden fear. That's because something just happened and just really startled you for a minute, right? But then there's fear that's a spirit that's with you every day, all day. Every day, all day, talking, tormenting you. You know, got you scared of this and scared of that, and no peace for your soul because fear is a tormentor. So that's another curse. Indecision. Can't make up your mind about nothing. Double-minded about everything. A double-minded man is unstable, God said, in all of his ways. None of your ways are stable, but you can't make up your mind about nothing. Just make a decision. And sometimes we make the wrong decision, but when you learn that it was wrong, then you know not to do that again. That's simple as that. But some people cannot make a decision for nothing. Panic attacks. Oh my goodness. Panic attacks is another curse. But it's rooted in fear. Panic attacks is rooted in fear. I mean, you just have to clear blue, your heart start banging like it's going to come out your chest. And then what? Fear overtakes you, overwhelms you, because you don't know what's going on. That's a panic attack. Mental illness. And when you look at it in Deuteronomy, it's called madness. Madness is mental illness. That's a curse. That's one of the curses in Deuteronomy. God don't want his people mentally ill, but sin will make you mentally ill. It will. When you keep thinking all the wrong things and doing all the wrong things, and you know, you got to get your mind right. That's why he said, let this mind be in you, which is also in Christ Jesus. But if you don't know what that means because you don't study the Bible, then you'll never understand what the mind of Christ is. I tell you, one of the main things it is peace. And it's peace that surpasses all understanding. Like no matter what you go through, God's peace is still in your mind, still in your heart. So but that mental illness is people, look, you think physical sickness is terrible, mental illness is just as bad. Here's the thing, you can have a sound mind and be sick in your body, but your mind will help sustain you. But if you are mentally sick, it's hard for you to have any soundness to help sustain your life. So it's more important to have a sound mind than it is of anything. You understand? So people are suicidal. That's a curse. Why would you want to kill yourself? nobody loves me, then you love you. Then go to the one who really loves you, Jesus. We will rather destroy ourselves before we go to God and get the help we need. Nothing is working out for me. I'm just giving up. What? In this life, you're going to have some times when nothing works out for you. We've all had them. And right now, the whole world about to have it. What you talking about? I mean, sometimes things don't work out, but is that a right for me to take my life? No. This right here is a sign that, number one, you must don't know God. Number two, you don't love yourself. Because something that you're putting before you is something, and it's a thing or things that you're putting before you, and it's more important to you than your own life. So, and the main one to me with people is, they become suicidal because of the man don't love them, or the woman don't love them, or my friends that turn their back on me, or money issues. These are just some of the things, right? Look, turn your back on me. I've learned to be at peace with myself. So if I don't have a friend in this world, okay, don't matter to me. I've gotten so past that. I've gotten past that because I used to go die. I was never suicidal.